For thousands of years, people have wondered, did the Bible's most dramatic story, the plagues of Egypt and the Exodus, actually happen? Were they real historical events? Or are they nothing more than myths, stories written to inspire faith, but never grounded in truth? Imagine, for a moment, standing on the banks of the Nile, watching as the mighty river you depend on for life suddenly turns red like blood. Fish die, the stench becomes unbearable, panic spreads. Was this divine punishment, or could there be a scientific explanation? What if I told you the Bible's plagues might not just be miracles of faith, but events rooted in real, natural disasters, events that science can actually help explain? Today, we're diving deep into one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Is there scientific proof of the Bible's plagues? And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because the revelations we're about to uncover will challenge everything you thought you knew about history, religion, and the very foundation of Western civilization. But before we begin, take a second, hit that like button and subscribe to Ancient Light, because together we're about to unlock the hidden truths they never wanted you to see. Now, let's travel back in time, over 3,000 years ago, to the land of ancient Egypt, a superpower of its age. Egypt was a kingdom of towering pyramids, powerful pharaohs, and unmatched wealth. But then, something happened that shook the empire to its core. A series of strange, devastating disasters. 10 catastrophic plagues struck Egypt, one after another, according to the Bible. These plagues were sent by God to free the Israelites from slavery. But what if these events can be traced not just to faith, but to science? Let's break it down, one plague at a time, and see how natural forces may have turned Egypt upside down. The first plague, the Nile turning to blood. The image is terrifying. An entire river, the lifeblood of Egypt, transformed into blood-red water. Now, here's the shocking part. Scientists have studied this phenomenon. Under certain conditions, algae blooms, sometimes called red tides, can turn water blood red. These blooms suck oxygen out of the water, killing fish in massive numbers and creating the same kind of disaster described in the Bible. Imagine the panic. The Egyptians relied on the Nile not just for drinking water, but for farming, for trade, for survival itself. Suddenly it was poisoned. No fish, no water, nothing but death. Was this a miracle, or was it nature itself striking at the heart of Egypt? But the nightmare didn't stop there. The second plague, frogs. Once the fish die, frogs flee the poisoned waters, escaping onto land in massive numbers. Suddenly, Egypt is overwhelmed with frogs invading homes, temples, even Pharaoh's palace. Now think about the chain reaction. Frogs, desperate to escape the poisoned Nile, flood into every corner of Egyptian life. But soon, deprived of their aquatic habitat, the frogs begin to die by the thousands, by the millions. Their rotting bodies spread disease, attracting flies and gnats. And here, the Bible's plagues align almost perfectly with the natural consequences of an environmental disaster. The third and fourth plagues, lice and swarms of flies. Imagine living in a world where the air itself becomes unbearable, where disease-carrying insects swarm relentlessly. Today, we know that when ecosystems collapse, when frogs die, when fish disappear, insects multiply unchecked. This isn't just a story. It's exactly how nature works. And for the Egyptians, it would have felt like divine punishment. But it gets even darker. The fifth plague, the death of livestock. Scientific theory suggests this could have been caused by an outbreak of anthrax or a similar disease carried by the swarms of insects and the rotting carcasses left behind. Imagine the horror. Egypt's wealth was measured in cattle and livestock, in animals that provided milk, meat, and labor. Suddenly they start dropping dead. The economy collapses. Food supply dwindles. The people despair. Then comes the sixth plague, boils and disease breaking out on humans. Now if you think about it, disease spreading from infected livestock and contaminated water makes perfect sense. Epidemics thrive in chaos, and Egypt was drowning in it. The people's bodies bore the scars of their suffering, just as the Bible describes. And then the seventh plague, hail and fire from the sky. On the surface, this sounds impossible. Hail mixed with fire, but scientists have pointed to massive volcanic eruptions in history that could explain it. When a volcano erupts, it can send fiery debris and ash raining down, sometimes mixed with ice storms triggered by the violent atmospheric changes. Could this have been the memory of a massive eruption in the Mediterranean, one so powerful its effects were felt across Egypt? And now, we reach the eighth plague, locusts. Swarms so thick they blot out the sun. Anyone who has seen locust swarms knows they can consume entire fields in hours, leaving nothing behind. And guess what? Locust outbreaks often follow unusual weather events, like floods, hail, and volcanic shifts. The chain reaction continues. Nature itself becomes a weapon. Then comes the ninth plague, darkness covering the land for 3 days. What could explain this? Once again, volcanic eruptions provide a clue. When a volcano erupts, it can send ash clouds so massive that they darken the sky for days, even weeks. Ancient records from around the world describe skies darkened by volcanic events. Imagine Egypt, shrouded in blackness, the sun blotted out, the people terrified. Was this God's hand, or the raw, terrifying power of nature? And finally, the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn. This one has haunted scholars for centuries. How could this be explained? Some scientists suggest that in households where grain supplies were contaminated by mold or toxins, the firstborn often, given the privilege of eating first, were the most vulnerable. They ate the poisoned grain, and they died. It's a chilling theory, but one that eerily fits the biblical account. Now step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. What we see is not just a series of random disasters, but a domino effect, one event triggering another, creating a cascade of plagues. The poisoned river leads to frogs. The frogs' death leads to insects. The insects spread disease. Weather events unleash hail and locusts. Volcanic eruptions darken the sky. Every step fits together like a puzzle. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. There's evidence of a massive volcanic eruption around the time of the Exodus on the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea. This eruption, one of the largest in recorded history, was so devastating that it reshaped civilizations. Could this eruption have triggered the chain reaction that Egypt recorded as divine plagues? Could it be that the memory of this disaster was preserved in the Bible, transformed into a story of faith, of liberation, of God's hand striking down the mightiest empire on earth? And what about the Exodus itself, the great departure of the Israelites from Egypt? Could that, too, have a scientific explanation? Some researchers believe that powerful wind events documented in modern times can push back waters temporarily, creating land bridges where none seem to exist. The parting of the Red Sea, described in the Bible, could have been a real, natural phenomenon. Imagine standing there as strong winds pushed the waters aside, revealing a path to the ancient Israelites. This would have been nothing short of a miracle, and maybe in a way it was. Now here's the real question. Does explaining the plagues through science make them any less miraculous? Some would say yes, but others argue no. Because what's more miraculous than nature itself? What's more awe-inspiring than the realization that our planet has the power to create disasters so immense they shape the course of human history? Whether you believe it was God's hand guiding these events, or the raw power of nature, one thing is undeniable. The story of the plagues has endured because it speaks to something deep within us, the fear of losing control, the hope for deliverance, the belief that even in our darkest hours, liberation is possible. And let's not forget, the Bible was never meant to be a science textbook. It was a record of faith, of memory, of survival. But when we uncover the scientific roots of these stories, we don't destroy their meaning, we deepen it. We see how real people lived, suffered, and survived in a world that could turn against them at any moment. So, was there scientific proof of the Bible's plagues? The evidence suggests yes, these events could very well have happened, shaped by natural forces that our ancestors didn't fully understand. But whether you see them as acts of God or acts of nature, one truth remains. They changed history forever. And here's the final thought. If ancient disasters of this scale could bring the most powerful empire of its time to its knees, what does that mean for us today? In a world where climate change, pandemics, and natural disasters are reshaping our lives, could the story of the plagues be more relevant now than ever before? Maybe the real message isn't just about Egypt and the Israelites, it's about us, about the fragility of human power and the resilience of those who endure. So the next time you hear the story of the 10 plagues, don't think of it as just a myth. Think of it as history written in fire, water, ash, and blood. A story that science is only just beginning to uncover. And if you've stayed with me until now, you know the truth. Sometimes, the line between miracle and reality is thinner than we ever imagined.